My name is Claire Bellergeau, and I'm a researcher and historian who discovered the life of an enslaved Black woman who lived in New York during the Revolutionary War. Born on Long Island, New York, around the year 1763, Liss, whose formal name was Elizabeth, was an enslaved Black woman seeking freedom and experiencing the Revolutionary War in a very unique way that helps us remember the lives of enslaved New Yorkers during the time of America's birth. Liss spent her childhood enslaved by two brothers of the wealthy Townsend family. By 1775, one brother, a shipping merchant named Samuel Townsend of Oyster Bay, was deeply involved in the Patriots' plans for a revolution. When British troops marched into his town, enemy officers billeted in Samuel's home alongside the family and the enslaved people. Liss now had additional work each day, serving these unwelcome enemy guests. But one of these British commanders made a big difference in her life. His name was Colonel John Graves Simcoe, and his regiment was called the Queen's Rangers. He was opposed to slavery on moral grounds, despite the fact that it was legal in all 13 American colonies. Simcoe probably shared news with Liss of a new 1779 law promising freedom to enslaved Black people who would escape and join the British cause. As Simcoe and his regiment departed Oyster Bay in the spring of 1779, Liss escaped with them. Samuel Townsend's son Robert was a merchant in Lower Manhattan and had been recruited as a spy for General George Washington using the code name Samuel Culper Jr. Robert closely followed Simcoe and his troops, while urging his father to abandon all hope of ever recapturing her. Now, though she had escaped, Liss was simply re-enslaved in Manhattan by the British, just as Robert took on his role as lead spy of Manhattan. He may even have convinced Liss to join his group, known as the Culper Spy Ring, using this code name 355, which represented the word lady. As an enslaved woman on the British side, Liss would have had access to high-level information in a role that seemed to arouse no suspicion. In 1780, when the infamous traitor Benedict Arnold entered Manhattan and joined the British side, he began rounding up dozens of suspected American spies that Robert worked with. Fearing he would also be caught, Robert moved his store from Hanover Square to Peck Slip and completely stopped writing spy letters to George Washington. In 1782, near the war's end, Liss became pregnant, just as she faced imminent evacuation with the British. She reached out to Robert to ask for his help. Would he repurchase her from the British so that she could stay in New York? Robert bought Liss and took her into his Peck Slip home, hiring a white maid and paying his father for her value. Then he wrote one final spy letter to George Washington. In February of 1783, Liss gave birth to a little boy she named Harry, who was later described as being mixed race. 6 months later, in a misguided plan he would regret, Robert sold Liss and baby Harry to a recently widowed friend named Anne Sharwin, who promised Liss could remain in New York. However, just 1 year later, Anne married a man named Alexander Robertson, a wealthy linen merchant living in Hanover Square. Almost immediately, Anne and Alexander got into a fight about Liss, and their marriage dissolved after just 1 month. Out of spite, greed, or both, Robertson sold Liss south to Charleston, South Carolina, and kept 2-year-old Harry in Manhattan. Liss's new enslaver in Charleston was a man known to history because he had been part of the Boston Massacre of 1770. His name was Richard Palms, and he was prone to violence. He had gotten in trouble for beating up a sheriff, inciting mutiny on an American warship during the war, and was often bankrupt due to living way beyond his means. In fact, Liss was so expensive that Palms had to take out a mortgage in order to purchase her. 2 years passed before Robert in New York discovered what had happened. He confronted Alexander Robertson and got a lot of details about Liss's purchase. He took possession of Harry, stole him. Harry was now 4 years old, and brought Harry to his parents' house in Oyster Bay. Then he began efforts to bring Liss back. He wrote to several merchants in Charleston who he knew were opposed to slavery. Ironically, Liss was likely smuggled back to New York because of a new law that Robert had supported as a member of an anti-slavery group he had joined called the New York Manumission Society. After reuniting with her son in Oyster Bay and living as a free person, Liss was finally freed by law in 1803 at about age 40. Despite suffering deception, violence, and separation from her child, Liss never stopped seeking her own freedom. Her ultimate triumph in the face of repeated tragedy and injustice makes her a symbol of enduring bravery and a meaningful representative of the struggles of enslaved New Yorkers during the founding era. I hope you'll join me in remembering Liss.